Okay, Tom, we've got a question here. How many other free will awareness units from IUOCs who are highly evolved are here now? Do you have any awareness of other beings like yourself? And what is their mission? Are the missions different from yours, from different areas, from different perspectives? How does that work? And how many do you think are here that are like you with a mission to help others from different walks of life or from different perspectives?
Okay, well, I don't have any idea how many. I only have my own experience. The experience that I run into people now and again like that, but that doesn't really tell me how many. There's 9 billion people on this planet, and I have not run into most of them. I've run into a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of them. So it's really hard to say. The way it works, at least the way it works with me, is that everybody has their own thing to do. And there's not any crosstalk between them. It's not like all the people that are here have a Slack setup or WhatsApp address or something like that. It's not that they all interact with each other and they all get together and they're all coordinated. It isn't like that. Everybody's on their own. Everybody is entirely on their own. And yes, they do have things to do. Now, some are more scripted than others. Some have very specific things to do, and others have more general things to do. So that might be a differentiation. Those that are very scripted, this is what you should do in this lifetime. And those that just say, in general, be nice, help people, be useful, that sort of thing. And they can be also very highly evolved people. They may be poor, they may live in a shack, they may not be high profile, but they may be highly evolved people who are just helpful and are a big positive influence within their own social circles. So it's all sorts of people. Everybody's not going to have a high profile. 90,000 people subscribing to them or something like that, or 1 million or 10 million people subscribing to them. That's not necessarily the way it looks. So how many are there? How many people are grown up? I'd say there's a lot of people that are pretty well grown up. Many. Probably hundreds of thousands. Many hundreds of thousands of people who have evolved quite a bit. They're good people. Good, solid human beings who do understand that life is about life is about what you can contribute, life is about kindness and cooperation and caring and all those sorts of things. So there's a lot of people like that. Now, there are still a small minority. It's not like 50% of the population. It's more like 1% of the population or 0.5% of the population. But there are a lot of people like that. Now, the people who are not only like that, but who understand the big picture and what's going on in the big picture. There's very few of us that are like that, because that's a little different now. If you're in that role, you're more of in a teacher role. Not just a good citizen role, a role of being a good example and that sort of thing, but you're in a teacher role. If you have that big picture, you are probably writing books, you're probably giving lectures, you probably have put yourself in a position where you have an audience of some sort, and those are much fewer. There's very few people who have a big picture, and within that group, there's probably you could probably separate them by just how big a picture they have. There's those that have a big picture and those that have a much big picture than that, and then those that have a much bigger picture than that. So that's probably stratified by the extent of the big picture that they have. And there's very few of those. Now, there are hopefully many people who are kind of on the cusp of that bigger picture. They almost see it. They know what it sort of is going to have to be like, but they don't really understand it. They couldn't explain it to anybody, but they are maybe a few steps from realization of it. That, I hope, is a much larger group. And what will happen is that when the big picture actually becomes known to them, they will very quickly grab hold of it and say, this makes sense. And hopefully that's what will push forward this whole of humanity growing up over the next, say, 4 decades. That will kind of push that forward, because there's a bunch of people standing in the wings that are grown up and well get it, even if they don't really understand the details themselves. Because the details in the final analysis, the details aren't that important. They're only important in as much as it helps you understand why things are the way they are. But the point of life isn't to have an immense understanding. The point of life is to be love, you see. The immense understanding is just kind of an extra thing that helps other people see bigger pictures and understand that love is indeed what matters. So you can just go around saying, love is the answer, love is the answer, love matters, but that won't influence anybody to change their mind about anything. You have to offer understanding. How does this make my life better? How does this improve my relationships? How does this improve my ability to succeed at work? And if you can put it into terms that are useful to people, then you have a much more powerful argument, rather than just saying, life is about love. Life is about love. Yeah. People will just kind of push you away with that because it's not news that they can use. It may be true, and they may even recognize that it's true, but they don't know how to apply it. They don't know what to do about it. So that's the point. Depending on how big a picture people have, kind of depends on where they are and how much experience they have, and is their tendency toward art, or is their tendency toward understanding details of the bigger picture. Those are two different things. So you can have very low entropy people focused in very different directions. And how many of them are there? Well, if you start at the very tippy top of that, there's very, very few. It's like a pyramid, right? There's very, very few at the very top. The pyramid's kind of pointy at the top. And there's not many. And as their big picture understanding goes down or gets more specialized, then there's more and more people. But you can't help the human race move toward a lower average entropy unless you affect that pyramid all the way down to where you're talking about the masses, until you can connect with people by the hundreds of millions. Then you can affect the level of quality in the human race. But that takes a fair amount of time to get there. And it does take a few people up at the point to get it started and be the catalyst that kicks it off. But they're not the ones that make it spread. They're not the ones that take it down to the bottom levels. They're just the people that kind of get the ball rolling. Then other people, by larger and larger numbers of other people, have to take that ball and give it a little push, make it roll a little more. And if you get enough people pushing, we will change everything. In maybe 3-4 decades, we can do it.
I know people can be inspired by music, by arts, by literature. So all of these people that you talk about who are spiritual teachers, can they come from these different disciplines?
Sure.
Can
Yeah,
that
they
be a
can come
part?
from it. Yeah, they can come from anywhere. They could be truck drivers. They could be anything. They don't have to be in the arts. They don't have to be scientists. They don't even have to have a very high level of education. But they just have to have a pretty high level of understanding, the nature of this reality and what works and what doesn't. And just somebody who's attentive, pays attention, and thinks can get there. No, you don't have to be a professional. You don't need to have any of those things. You will have people from all walks of life. You have to, because those people kind of talk to people like them. So if you have an artist who has a big understanding, he's more likely to influence other artists because they have the same vocabulary and they tend to meet and go to the same places, and they meet in art museums and other things. So they tend to talk to people like themselves, and that's good. And if you have truck drivers and construction workers and other people, then that's good too, because they need to be able to talk to their peers and help. So you need people from all different walks and parts of life in order to get these ideas down to the mainstream. So in the beginning, you need just a few people that kind of get the ball rolling, define the ball, define which direction is uphill and which direction's downhill, and get it started. But then progressively, as you go down through the layers of this pyramid, you need more and more people from more and more various walks of life, various types of people. You need all sorts of people, kind of every kind of people there are. You need people of
Yes.
every color. You need people of every profession. You need people of all persuasions to be part of it. Otherwise, you're not going to reach the masses. You have to reach the masses by talking their language,
Sure.
by putting words in a form that they understand. And if you have 5 PhDs and you speak very logically, there's only a handful of people that are going to follow your argument. Most people will listen to some of it and kind of say, that doesn't make any sense to me, and they're going to turn it off.
That's a
So the
really good
message,
point.
yeah,
Yeah.
the message has to be integrated by people of all sorts and pushed downwards into the pyramid until you get a critical mass of understanding, and then it'll just chain reaction. People
And
will tell people who tell people.
don't you think at that point, Tom, people will be ready for your My Big Toe model because they would easily recognize it as the right framework of how
Yeah,
reality works?
yeah. I hope we'll get to that point.
Yeah.
I hope we get to it in the next 15 years or so, because I'm not sure I'll last much more than about 15 years. But I hope that we get to it sooner
Me either.
rather than later. But anyway,
Well, thank you, Tom. That was a really interesting discussion. Thank you. Love is the answer. If there's one way to discover this truth that Tom Campbell, physicist and consciousness expert, has concluded, it is through your own experience. Give yourself the gift of experiencing yourself. After all, Tom has stated so many times that if it's not your experience, it's not your truth. So learn to experience with Tom's Exploring Consciousness and Everything Paranormal program and unlock those natural abilities for yourself. Discover why love is the answer. Binaural beats included to assist you. Details are in the description below. Thank you.
I and MBT Events hope you like this video. If you do, then you should consider being a Patreon member, because Patreon members get early access to our special content. You will also be able to get your questions answered by me in special Q&A sessions, and most importantly, your contribution as a patron member will enable us to produce the content that you're looking for. So thank you.